everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today I want to talk about the Travis and Jamelyn Juetten case. Now, a few days ago, I uploaded a video where I was talking about the similarities between the details of the Juetten crimes as well as the Idaho 4 crimes. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but I really want to focus on Travis and Jamelyn and what happened to them on August the 13th of 2021. Now, we're approaching 3 years since those crimes occurred. So we're going to talk about some of the aspects of that crime, as well as some of the details that are very similar to the details in the Idaho 4 case. Travis Juetten was 26 when these crimes occurred, and his wife Jamelyn was 24. Now, they were married in 2018, and they settled on a small piece of farming land in Marion County, Oregon. Now, in my last video, I mentioned that these crimes occurred in Salem, Oregon, but technically they happened in Marion County, which is a very small town right in between Salem and Silverton, Oregon. So Travis worked at a dispensary, and he's described as a pacifist. He was a vegan, and the people who knew him said that he had a very gentle way about him. Jamelyn was an in-house nanny, according to Travis's brother. The young couple loved animals, and they loved to travel. And by all appearances, they seemed to be living a very peaceful lifestyle. Now, they were getting ready for an upcoming trip to Hawaii, and they appeared to be a very happy couple. On Friday the 13th of August 2021, the night before Travis and Jamelyn were leaving to go on their trip to Hawaii, they were attacked while they were asleep in their bed by a man in a mask with a large knife. Now, law enforcement states that this man broke into the house, but doesn't go into any details about how this perpetrator broke in. Now, there was also another man in the house, and he was staying over at the Juettens because he was going to be watching their pet while they were away on their trip. So there were 2 men and 1 woman, as well as a pet, inside the house when this assailant entered. According to reports, the attacker headed straight for Travis and Jamelyn's bedroom as soon as he entered the home. Now, he attacked the couple while they were sound asleep in their bed. They woke up to this individual attacking them with a knife. Now, Travis attempted to fight off this assailant, and Jamelyn, when she wakes up and realizes what's happening, also tries to help Travis. Now, unfortunately, Travis was overcome by this attacker, and he lost his life. Jamelyn was stabbed 19 times and also suffered broken bones and fractures. In the Idaho 4 case, investigators believe that these victims were attacked while they were asleep in their beds, just as the Juettens were. And if the injuries are as described to some of these victims in the Idaho 4 case, there would be some similarities, because we know that some of the victims' injuries were described as being more than just stab wounds. So there's a lot of similarities in these 2 crimes. One of the questions that I had in the back of my mind when I was researching the Juetten crimes was, why didn't this assailant attack the guest who was staying in the Juetten house that night? I mean, he had already gone after Travis and Jamelin, with a knife. So when he realized that somebody else was in the house, why didn't he attack that individual? I mean, it's possible that maybe he was startled. Maybe he thought that Travis and Jamelin were the only two people in the house. And it startled him when he heard another man's voice. And that's why he just fled the house. It's also a possibility that this attacker may not have wanted the confrontation with the man who was staying in the house. He had the advantage with Travis and Jamelin because he attacked them while they were in a deep sleep. So even after they woke up, they'd still be kind of out of it. They had just woken up from being fast asleep. So he had that advantage because he had the element of surprise on his side. But with this third individual, he didn't have that because this man had already opened the bedroom door. So he knew that he was awake and on his feet. So maybe that's why he chose not to attack that individual and decided that it was better to flee the house. The Juetten house is located on a big piece of property in a rural area. So there was no direct neighbors or anyone around this house. Now, even though this house is located on a really big property out in the middle of nowhere, it is right next to the main road. So it would be very easy to see from the road and could definitely be accessed rather easily. Although the house guest called 911 right away, it took a while for law enforcement to reach the home because of where it's located. Now, when law enforcement does finally arrive, Travis Juetten is deceased, and Jamelin is barely hanging on to life. The house guest is unharmed, as well as the Juetten's family pet. Now, Jamelin is rushed to the hospital, where she goes through a lot of medical procedures, and they save her life. Jamelin was able to pull through, which is how we know some of the details of what happened in the house that night. Now, this is an ongoing investigation, so law enforcement is not releasing a lot of the details that Jamelin gave in her statements. Just as in the Idaho 4 case, investigators in the Juetten case are not releasing a lot of information. They're keeping a lot of the details confidential. Now remember, it's been 3 years since the Juetten crimes, and law enforcement doesn't even have a suspect. So what we do know from Jamelin's statements is that the couple was attacked by a man wearing a mask with a large knife. Now, we also know that nothing was missing from the house. Nothing was disturbed outside of the bedroom. So it doesn't appear that whoever committed this crime was there to steal anything, which would be a good indication that either Travis or Jamelin were targeted. If someone's entering a house in the middle of the night with no intention of stealing anything, that's a pretty good indication that they are there to get to someone who's inside that house. Now, it's possible that maybe whoever committed this crime was planning on stealing from the house. And maybe they thought that they would eliminate Travis and Jamelin first, and that would give them all the time in the world. And maybe they were surprised by this house guest. Maybe they didn't expect this house guest to be there, and that's why they didn't steal anything from the house. Law enforcement stated that nothing was missing and that everything outside of the bedroom appeared to be intact. So that's also a possibility. But we're talking about two different types of criminals. Someone who's going to break into someone's house because they want to steal something usually isn't going to want to encounter whoever lives inside this home. Usually they're going to try to sneak in and sneak out because they're not trying to take someone's life. They're just trying to steal something that they can go sell. Now, someone who's going to go into someone's house and attack them brutally with a knife is a totally different type of criminal. It's two totally different motivations. So there's also the possibility that whoever committed these crimes knew Travis and Jamelyn, or one of them. They would have known that this couple was very gentle-natured and maybe felt confident that they could overpower them easily. They would have also known about the house, and they would have known that there were no neighbors around this house. And because of where it was located, if somebody did call 911, they would still have time to get away because it would take law enforcement a while to get there. Now, another thing about the location of this house is that since there were no direct neighbors or anyone around this house, nobody would hear the screaming. Nobody would hear the commotion. It's very possible that this attacker had no idea that there was a house guest staying with the Juettens that night. So that's definitely a possibility. Now, as I mentioned before, the Juettens were getting ready to leave for Hawaii. So it's very possible that it was somebody who knew this couple and knew that they were leaving for Hawaii the next day, and maybe thought that they had their vacation cash inside the house. And that's why they went in on that particular night. I just think it's odd that this happened on Friday the 13th. There's a lot of possibilities in this case because there's a very limited amount of information that has been released by law enforcement because this is still an open investigation. But from the looks of this crime, it does appear that this couple was targeted. According to family and friends, Travis and Jamelyn didn't have any known enemies. This couple is described as being very peaceful. Now, Jamelyn, if you look at her social networks, she is very politically opinionated. And according to Travis's brother, her and Travis did attend protests and political rallies. But by all accounts, it appears as though Travis was a very caring and compassionate individual, as was Jamelyn. So it seems odd that somebody would target this couple. Essentially, this case has gone cold. Obviously, Jamelyn is a witness in the Juetten crimes. She was a victim, and she would have a lot of information for investigators. Now, law enforcement isn't going to release her statements because this is still an ongoing investigation. Travis's mother came out in an interview right after the Idaho 4 crimes and pled with the public and investigators to take another look at her son's murder because she felt that the details between the Juetten crimes and the Idaho 4 crimes were so similar. So some of the similarities are all of these victims were attacked in their beds, presumably while they were sleeping. They were all attacked by a single male wearing a mask with a large knife. They were all attacked between 3 and 4 a.m. on the 13th of the month. So there's a lot of similarities between these two crimes. Now, I'm not saying that Brian Kohberger committed the Juetten crimes. I don't even believe that he was in that area during that time. But what I am saying is if Brian Kohberger did commit the Idaho 4 crimes, it's very possible that this was a copycat situation. It's very possible that Brian Kohberger had heard about the Juetten crimes. I mean, he probably heard about a lot of the crimes in this area because this was his field of study. So maybe if Brian Kohberger did commit these Idaho 4 crimes, maybe he felt as though if he made it look like the Juetten crimes, that would give him an alibi, because obviously he wouldn't have been in Oregon during the time of those crimes. So it couldn't be him. So maybe he carried out the Idaho 4 crimes in the same manner as the Juetten crimes in hopes that investigators would put the two together. Or it's very possible that Brian Kohberger didn't commit the Idaho 4 crimes, and whoever committed the Juetten crimes also committed the Idaho 4 crimes. That's also a possibility. So you have to think the Juetten crimes are still unsolved. There's still no suspect. So whoever went in and brutally took the life of Travis and attempted to take the life of Jamelin is a very dangerous individual who's obviously out there in the community. Now, it's also very possible that whoever committed the Juetten crimes might be sitting in prison right now for another crime. It's a lot more common than people think. A lot of crimes that go unsolved, these individuals who committed these crimes are in prison for other crimes. Now, they're not going to confess to these crimes. They're going to do their time for whatever they got busted for. So it's very possible that whoever took the life of Travis Juetten and attacked Jamelin Juetten is already in prison. Because anyone who can commit such a violent crime is likely going to do that again. This is obviously a dangerous individual. Now, I'm not saying that the Juetten crimes and the Idaho 4 crimes are absolutely related. But what I am saying is that the similarities of these two crimes are kind of undeniable. Travis Juetten's family is still desperately seeking any information. They want answers. Now, I have a lot more information about this case that I didn't talk about in this video. Some of it has to do with personal relationships and the family's relationship, Travis's family's relationship with Jamelin after the crimes occurred. So I'm going to be sharing this information in upcoming videos, but I'm also going to be doing a deep dive into this because, as I said, there's really not a lot of details out there. Law enforcement hasn't really released a lot of information. So I'm going to dive into this, and maybe with your help, we can find some answers. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And if you liked my video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. As I said, I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.